Welcome to Lasea class. I am your teacher, Jan Lasea.
Ladies and gentlemen, a blessed day to everyone. This is my fourth lecture on our subject, ITE 124, Event-Driven Programming. In my previous lecture, I explained the graphical user interface controls such as list box, combo box, checkbox, group box, and radio button. Also, I demonstrated using Visual Studio IDE on how to use the said graphical user interface controls. Today, we are going to learn array, form menu, and status bar, dialog box, and list view. An array is a group of contiguous memory locations that all have the same name and data type. To refer to a particular location or element in the array, we specify the name of the array and the position number or index, a value that indicates a specific location within the array of the element to which we refer. There are kinds of array. One is called one-dimensional array and the other is multi-dimensional array. A one-dimensional array is an array with only one subscript or one dimension. On the other hand, the multi-dimensional array, it is an array with more than one subscript or dimension. Declaring and allocating a one-dimensional array. Arrays occupy space in memory. The programmer, like you, specifies the type of the elements and uses operator new to allocate dynamically the number of elements required by each array. Arrays are allocated with new because arrays are objects and all objects must be created with the new operator. Declaring and allocating an array, a one-dimensional array. Number 1. Syntax of declaring a one-dimensional variable array in 2 lines. The syntax, we specify the data type, assign a data type followed by an empty brackets, opening close brackets, and followed by the array variable name that you baptize, and you end it with a semicolon. The next line is the variable name written in an assignment statement followed by equal and then the new operator and the assigned data type and then followed by an open bracket and followed by the given size, the number of elements that the array can contain, and then a closing bracket with a semicolon. For example, in this first line we have an array of integers and then it is a name list. The first line is not yet complete and it cannot yet store any integers because we did not specify the size. The second line will complete the declaration of an array of integers. As we can see, the name of the array name list written in an assignment statement followed by equal operator with a new operator followed by the chosen assigned data type int and then open bracket and the given size is 10, closing bracket and semicolon. This array of integers can store 10 different integer numbers. The diagram below shows a visual of the array of integers name list. The corresponding indexes, the starting index, always begin with a index of 0, and that index of 0 refers to the first element. The last index at index 9 refers to the 10th element of the array of integers name list. Number 2. Syntax of declaring a one-dimensional variable array in one line. We can declare an array in one line. The syntax is we assign a data type followed by an empty opening close brackets followed by the baptized variable name followed by equal operator followed by the new operator and then followed by the assigned data type open brackets, and then the given size, close brackets, and the semicolon. For example, I like to declare an array of integers that can store up to 10 different integer numbers. So here in this example, we have a assigned data type int followed by an empty brackets followed by the baptized variable name, name list, followed by equal, the new operator, and then the assigned data type int followed by an open bracket with a given size 10, closing bracket, and then semicolon. Number 3, syntax of initializing a one-dimensional variable array in one line. We can declare an array that it has already a initial values, and the data type in the syntax is we assign a data type followed by an empty brackets, followed by the variable name, followed by equal operator, and then we enclose the initial values of the array within a open and end curly braces. Inside the open and end curly braces, we specify the constant values, separate it with a comma like this, and end it with a semicolon. We have an examples here, an array of integers name list that has these given initial values -1, 7, 5, 9, 3, 6, 8, 4, 1, and 0. And then if we count the number of initial values, it is 10. Therefore, the array name list in this diagram at index 0, it contains the value -1. At index 9, it contains the value 0. Another example, we have an array of characters, name letter, that has 5 characters initialized A, B, C, D, and E. And then the diagram below shows the structure or the diagram or the picture or the appearance of the array of characters name letter. At index 0, it stores the first letter A. At index 4, it stores the last character name letter E. Let us learn the code to set up an array of objects. It is convenient to apply array of objects when the number of objects to create is more than 3. Sometimes we need array of objects. We need to apply array of objects in our code to store informations such as records of products, records of people, and many more. In this example, I define a class name account that has properties such as the name of that account, the account number, and then his or her balance, plus a constructor and other defined methods. The array of objects can be visualized like this. For example, if we declare an array of 5 different objects, at index 0 we can store a person account. At index 1 we can store another different person account, and we can store up to 5 different accounts. The following codes are the continuation of the class account. It shows 2 methods, namely register, that will ask the user to input his or her account number, name, and balance. And then the show info method that will display the account number, the name, and then the balance. The class program is the stage where we instantiate the array of objects. By the way, this code is an example of a console application in C# programming using Visual Studio IDE. But in this subject, event-driven programming, we will not learn how to create a console application. This example is only a demonstration of how to declare an array of objects. By and by, in my demonstration, we will learn how to create a Windows application that applies array of objects. The class name program is the stage where we instantiate the array of objects. I declared a constant name max that contains the value 5, that the purpose of this constant variable is to indicate the size of the array of objects. Next, I instantiated an array name member, and then it is used and then it will reference 5 different objects. By looking at this statement, account, the name of the class, followed by an empty brackets that indicates it is an array of objects, and then the variable name member, followed by equal operator, followed by the memory allocator new, followed by the class name account, and then the given size of 5. This definition or declaration is not yet complete as an array of objects because it did not have allocated the 5 objects as a whole. Inside the method main, I instantiated the array name member reference types as 5 objects in the for loop statements. In this for loop statement that will repeat 5 times at index 0 to index 4, the line member at index CTR is equal to new account will create and allocate an object, an account object, and then it will call the default constructor that initializes the properties, namely the name, the account number, and then the balance. The for each loop is convenient to write less and without index reference for the array as shown in this last code, which is similar to the for loop code shown here. For menu and status bar. The menu strip is a control that represents the container for the menu structure. The status strip is a control that displays information about an object being viewed on a form. The object's components or contextual information that relates to the object's operation within your application. The menu strip is what you will use if we want to place a menu structure in our window form. The status strip is what you will use to place a status bar at the bottom of the window. For example, this status bar that has a label that displays information. The dialog box is a window used to display and for accept information. Dialog boxes can either be modal or modeless. Like this employee data entry is an example of a dialog box where the user can interact by inputting ID number, first name, middle name, and so on. And then the user can click the following buttons to interact. There are two types of dialog boxes, modal or modeless. Types of dialog box. Modal dialog box does not let the user continue working with the rest of the application until it is closed. That is the modal dialog box. In my demonstration later on, we will observe how the modal dialog box behave compared to the modeless dialog box. In our C# code, if we added a form window and we wanted to call that form to appear on the desktop as a modal dialog box, we write in this 2 lines of code. We reference the class name form2 and declare and instantiate an object name f followed by equal and then followed by the memory allocator new followed by the class name form2, and then the next line to call that form2 window as a modal dialog box, we reference the object name f and then we call the method show dialog. And once that it will appear on the screen, we cannot switch to another window until we close that form dialog window. On the other hand, the modeless dialog box lets the user shift the focus between the dialog box and another form without having to close the dialog box. The opposite of modal dialog box is modeless dialog box. If the window appears as a modeless dialog box, we can switch from one window to the other window without closing that modeless dialog box. In our C# code, if we wanted to call a window that behaves as a modeless dialog box, we write this way. For example, we added a form number 3. So we instantiate an object name f using the class form3. Form3 f is equal to new form3. And then the next line, we reference the object name f. We call the method show. And then that method show will make it as a modeless dialog box. The message box is a dialog box that displays a message and accepts input from user like OK, yes or no, OK cancel method. For example, this line will display a message box on the screen that will display a message. I hope you have learned a lot from me. And the syntax is simple. You just simply call the object message box followed by period, and then call the method show, and then place a string, the message, and then followed by a comma, and then place a title caption, like for example my name, and it will be displayed as a message box dialog box caption with a default OK button. Another example, if we wanted to display a message box that asks the user, do you want to exit this application, yes or no, we write it this way. Dialog result answer, variable answer is equal to message box.show, the string, do you want to exit this application, comma, the title caption, followed by the message box buttons, yes or no, that it will display yes or no buttons, and then message box icon, that question that will display a question icon before the message. Do you want to exit this application? Let us learn this GUI control called list view. A list view is a graphical user interface control that displays a collection of items. The physical appearance of a list view looks like this. It shows a column header, and then it shows a row of grid where we can place records of information. The list view has a number of columns like column ID number, first, middle, last, age, profession, course, address, and telephone number. And you can place as many columns in a list view. Display a record in the list view. Focus your attention on the appearance of the list view below. The list view has 9 columns, namely ID number, first, middle, last, age, profession, course, address, and telephone number. Let us place or display a record in the list view through the C# code. For example, inside the form 1, we declare data members that correspond to the number of columns in the list view. Using the built-in class listViewItem, I declared a variable name record. This variable record represents the first column, the ID number. Using the built-in class listViewSubItem, which is a property of the class listViewItem, I declared the variable names, namely first, middle, last, age, profession, course, address, and telephone number that matches the columns of the list view. Instantiate and place value. The following code will show how to instantiate and place value set up to be placed as a record in the list view. I instantiated the object name record and placed the ID number value 1. Next, I instantiated the object name first and placed the first name 1. I added the object first as a sub-item to the object record. Next, I instantiated the object name middle and placed the middle name value capital A. I added the object middle as sub-item to the object record. Next, I instantiated the object name last and placed the last name value masipag. I added the object last as a sub-item to the object record. The continuation, I instantiated the object name age and placed the age value 18. I added the object age as a sub-item to the object record. Next, I instantiated the object name profession and placed the profession value student. I added the object profession as a sub-item to the object record. Next, I instantiated the object course and placed the course value BSIT. I added the object course as a sub-item to the object record. Continuation. I instantiated the object name address and placed the address value La Trinidad Benguet. I added the object address as a sub-item to the object record. Next, I instantiated the object telephone and placed the telephone value 915-123-4567. I added the object telephone as a sub-item to the object record. Finally, this command list view employee.items.add and then the object record will add and display the record in the list view. The name of the list view control that I set is list view employee that I set in the property of this list view. When I drag and drop the object list view control inside the form in the property of the list view, I name the list view as list view employee. That's why I reference here in this C# code. Ladies and gentlemen, let us create a Windows application project that uses dialog boxes. Let's get started. I select Create New Project. I filter selecting C# and Windows. And then I scroll down below and locate the Windows Form app.NET Framework. And then click the Next button. I type the project name, dialog boxes. I specify the location folder where I would like to store this new project. I check this checkbox, place a solution and project in the same directory. I select this latest framework, .NET Framework 4.8. And then I click the Create button. The Visual Studio IDE is ready and appeared in my desktop screen. Next, let us set up some preliminary configuration, like the mode of production is released. And then next, I click the project menu and then select dialog boxes properties. I scroll down below and then specify the project icon. I click the browse button and then I locate my user defined icon, and then after that I click the build onto the left panel. I specify the platform target x86 or 32-bit Windows application, and then I scroll down below. I click the advanced button and then I set the debugging information to none, and then I click OK. I click the save all button and then close this tab. On the Form 1 design, I right click it and then select properties. On the form properties located bottom right, I set first the font lettering to Arial, font style to regular, font size to 14, and then click OK. Next, I set the form border style to sizable, the default, and then I specify the form icon, set up the form icon, and then scroll down below. I set the size to 800, 600, 800 by 600, and I press the enter key. Next, I set up the startup position to show it at the center desktop screen. Next, I change the form caption to dialog boxes, and then I press the enter key. Let us place a menu strip in this form number 1 or our main form. I click the toolbox and then locate the menu strip and then drag and drop. The menu strip is by default placed on top inside the window form number 1. This is the menu strip. I click this part of the menu strip and specify the menu, and I will name it program, the main menu program. Next, I will add some menu items in the program menu. I will add a menu item modal form. Next, I click this next sub item to add, and I will type modeless form, and then I click this type here text box to add another menu item, and I will type message box, and then finally I will add some more, one last menu item. I will call it exit, and those will be the menu items under the program menu. Next, let us place a status bar or status strip in this form 1. I go back to the toolbox and then drag and drop a status strip or the status bar. If I scroll down below, the status bar appear at the bottom of the form window. I will click this drop down button and add a status label that we can place some information. On the properties of this status label of the status strip, I go here and then I will specify a information, for example dialog boxes on the text property, and then I will name this status strip label as LBL status. Next to that, we will add a Windows form. On the Solution Explorer, right-click the name of the project, right-click it, and a context menu will appear. Go and point to Add, and then select Form Windows Form, this one. I will accept the default name form2.cs. I will click the Add button. This form2 will be called later when we click the menu item modal form. I right click this form number 2 and then select properties. On the properties panel, I will specify the font to Arial, font style regular, font size 14, and then click OK. Next, I will specify the form border style to fix single. I will set a window icon for form 2, and then next to that I will not display the maximize button or maximize box. I will set it to false. Also, the minimize box, I will set it to false to hide them. Scroll down below, I will specify the width and height to 400, 200, 300, and then press the enter key. The text property, I will call it I will name it profile. Let us place a picture box in this form number 2. I go to the toolbox, drag and drop a picture box, and then place it here. On the properties of the picture box, the property name image, I will place a picture, and then the dialog window, I will select local resource, and then next to that I will click the import button. I will place my ID picture and then click OK. Next to that, I scroll down below and then set another property, the size mode property. I will specify stretch image, and then I will resize the picture box, and let me horizontal align this picture box on the width of this form number 2. I click this drop down button and then point to add remove buttons, and then check center horizontally, center vertically, so that these two buttons will appear on this toolbar. Selecting that picture box, I like to center it horizontally, so I click this center horizontally, and we are done. Next, let us place a button. I go back to the toolbox and then drag and drop a button. I go to the property of the button text, and then I will specify a caption property, close. Next to that, I will set the cursor of that button to hand cursor. Let us place a code in the close button under the click event. So I right click it and then select properties. On the properties of that close, I click this event button to show all the events. I locate the click event and then double click this blank text box. It would be nice if we modify the name of the button so that it is easy to read the code. So I go back to the form design, I go back to the properties, I click this button to show I click this button properties to show the different properties of that button. I scroll up and name this button btn close. btn close. Next, I go back to the click event property. I remove that one, delete, and then press the enter key to remove, and then double click again the click event handler, and the command to close the form and go back to the main form is this command, this dot close. Let me click the save all button, and then I go back to form 1, our main form. Let us place a mouse click event on the menu item modal form. I select this modal form, and then I right click it, and then select properties. On the properties panel located on the bottom right, I click the events property. I locate the click event and then double click it. To call that form 2 so that it will display on the desktop screen, the command is form 2. We will instantiate an object name f using the class form 2 like this, and then reference the name f, and then call the method show dialog to call that form 2 and display it and behave as a modal form. Let us save. Let us compile, run, and test. I click the build menu and then select clean solution. Wait for the message that appears it is completed or done. And then next to that, I click again the build menu and then select rebuild all on the output status panel. We will wait when the message appears. Rebuild all succeeded with no syntax errors. Let us run for the first time. I click the debug menu and then select start without debugging, or press the keyboard shortcut Ctrl F5. Our main form, or form number 1, appears at the center of the desktop, and then we can see this program menu. If I left click it, it has menu items, and then we can see this status bar. If I click the modal form, it will display our second form. And then if I switch to the main form, or form number 1, we cannot switch it back or go back to form 1 because the behavior of this form number 2 is modal form. We can go back to the main form if we close this form number 2. If I click close, now we can go back to form number 1. Let us close this main form and then set up the modal form, form number 2, to display at the center parent or at the center of form number 1, so that it is better to see. If I click the close button and then I go back to form number 2, I select this form 1, right click it, and then click properties. I click this button to show all the properties of form number 2. I set the startup position property to center parent, and then I click the save all and then click the build menu, build clean solution, and then build rebuild solution. And if we run and then click the modal form, it will show at the parent center this form number 2 that behaves a modal form. We cannot switch to another form like form 1 because the behavior of this form 2 is modal form. We need to close it so that we can go back to the main form. Let us close the Windows application. Let us add another form. We call it form number 3. On the Solution Explorer, I right-click the name of the project dialog boxes. I point to add and then select Form Windows Form. I will accept the name form3.cs and then click Add. I right-click this form number 3 and then set up some properties like the font property. I set the font to Arial, font style regular, and font size 14. Next, I will assign a icon of this form number 3. Next, I will adjust the window size to 400 by 300. I set the start position to center parent. I will name or set the caption of the window to profile. Dialog. Modeless dialog. I will name it modeless dialog. Let us place some button in this form number 3. I click the toolbox and then place a button. I will name this button to BTN close. I set the cursor of this button to hand cursor, and then next I will set the text caption to close, and then next to that I click these events and then bind a mouse click event, and then the command to close a form so that we can go back to the main form is this.close. I click the Save All button. Let us place a label toolbox. Let us place a label. I click the properties of this label and then I will put a text modeless dialog. I will set the Arial to a larger font size and then click the center horizontally. I select the close button and then click the center horizontally. I select the label and then assign a font color blue. Let us make that text bold. Let us call this form number 3 in our main form under the menu item modeless form. I go back to form 1 and then select the menu item modeless form, right click it, select properties, and then click this event and then bind a mouse click event, and let us call form 3 and then we reference the object name F. This time we will call the method show and it will behave as a modeless form. Let us build clean solution. and then build rebuild solution, and then let us run and test. Let us click the program menu and then select modeless form. Now if I click form 1, we can switch from form 1 to form 3 because the behavior of this modeless dialog is a modeless dialog. It can switch from one window to the next window compared to modal form or modal dialog that we cannot switch. If I click the close button, we can close that form number 3. Let us bind a code for the message box and then the exit button. So let us close our Windows application, select the design of form 1 and then right click the menu item message box, bind a mouse click event under that menu item, and we will put a code that will display a message box. And then place a message box caption and it with semicolon. Let us go back to form 1, right click the exit button, click properties, bind a mouse click event, and do not forget the command application.exit to close a Windows application. Let us click the save all button and then build clean solution, build the rebuild solution, and then let us run and test. I click the program and then select message box. It will show a message. If I click again the program menu and then exit, it will close our Windows application. Let us change the message that appears in this dialog box. I go to the modal form menu item and then show the mouse click event and then add a message on the status label. I reference the name LBL status because I changed the name of that label under the status strip or status bar, and then I will place a message which is modal dialog box. I will copy that status and then place it also in another mouse click event for modeless form menu item, and I will place a message modeless dialog box. Let us test. I click the build clean solution, build the rebuild solution, and then I press Ctrl F5 to run. Now observe this status label under the status bar. If I click program modal form, it will change the status label message to modal dialog box. I click close. If I click the modeless form, it will change to modeless dialog box. And that is my demonstration. Ladies and gentlemen, I will demonstrate how to use the graphical user interface control list view. I already made a Windows application project. Let us place a list view on the toolbox. I will drop or place a list view onto this form. And I will adjust the width and height of this list view. On the properties panel of this list view, I will set the name of this list view, and I will name it list view employee. Next, I will set the background color to blue. Next, I go to the property columns, and let us add columns. I click the add button. On the right panel, I go to the text property and then place a column name ID number. The text align is left. The text width I set to 100. I click again the add button to add another column, and then I set the text name to first. The text alignment is left. The text width is 100. I add another column. I change the text to middle. The text align is left. The width is 100. I add another column. I set the text to last. Text alignment is left. The width I set it to 100. I add another column. I set the text to age. Text alignment is left. The text width is 60. I add another column. I set the text to profession. Text alignment is left. Text width is 100. I add another column. I set the text to course. Text alignment is left. Text width is 100. I add another column. I set the text to address. Text alignment is left. The text width is 120. Finally, I will add another column. I set the text to telephone number. Text alignment is left. The text width is 80. And let us click now the OK button to close the column header collection editor dialog box. Next, I go back to the properties of that list view. I set the full row select property value to true. Next, I set the property grid lines to true. Finally, to display the columns in our list view, the property view, we will assign a value for that property view to details. And we can see now the columns, ID number, first, middle, last, age, profession, course, address, and telephone number displayed with grid lines in our list view. Let us take a look at the code of Form 1. Let me first click the Save All button. Let us look at the code of Form 1. The data members that I declared on Form 1 are the things that I discussed in my previous lecture. Like for example, the variable record, first, middle, until telephone. The only thing that I did not so far explain is the other data members declared, like constant int max to 5 and array of employee, array of class employee, and I name it to Kawani. Let me show you the code of the class name employee. And here it is in the Solution Explorer. If I double click the employee.cs, this is the class employee that I added a class name employee, and then the properties are ID number, first, middle, age, profession, course, address, telephone number, to store the details of a employee. And then it has a constructor, default constructor, a method clear to clear the values of the properties, ID number, first name, middle name, until telephone. And then a method show that will display a message box that will display the information about that current employee record in a message box, as we can see here. This class employee will be used inside the class form1 to be as a array of objects. The size of the array of objects is 5, up to 5 employees that it can accept, that can store into an array of objects. And if we read again this line, employee, opening close empty brackets, that indicates it is an array of class employee, and I name that to Kawani. And I declared another variable, integer I, to monitor the index of the array and to also determine if it exceeded up to 5 employees only that it can store. Let us go back to the design of Form 1. In the Form 1, I placed some text boxes, mass text box, combo box, drop down combo box, another text box, and then another mass text box. At the bottom below, I place buttons like clear GUI, clear list, add, show employees, and then the exit button. Let us look at the code of the clear GUI button. If I double click it to show the click event of that, we can see that the purpose of that button, clear graphical user interface or clear GUI, is to clear the contents of those text boxes, mass text box, combo box, and so on. As if we look at the code here, that's the purpose. Let us go back to the form design. Let us look at the code of the clear list button. I double click it or double tap, and it will show us the mouse click event of that button, clear list. And the purpose of that is that it will clear the contents of the list view. And this is the line that it will clear the contents of the list view. List view employee.items.clear. And it will also reset the employee index to -1. And not only that, it will also clear the contents of the array of employees or array of objects using the for each loop statement by calling the method clear. If we go back to the class employee, remember I defined a method clear that it will clear the contents of the properties. This clear button is the one being called here, key period clear. Let us go back to the form design. Let us look at the code of the button add click event. So I double click it. The button add will add the entered employee details and store it in our array of objects. The name of that array of objects is Kawani. And as we can see here, we have an if statement to monitor if it exceeded up to 5 employees. If I is greater than or equal to max -1 is true, Therefore, it will display a message box that it will tell us that up to 5 employees are accepted, and then it will not anymore execute this code because it will exit the add click event, the button add click event, by calling the command return. Otherwise, if it is not exceeded the number of 5 employees, the CPU will run now the code below. It will increment the variable I. If it is -1 as the initial value, it will become 0, and it will indicate the first element of the array. And then it will retrieve the contents of the text boxes, mass text boxes, combo box, and store it into that array at index I, at index 0, by the following code. It will access the properties ID number until telephone. The modifier access of the properties ID number, first name until telephone are all public. If we go back to the definition of the class employee, I assign a public modifier so that we can access them outside the class. Let us go back to that code of the button add. Here in this case, this is the code that I explained in the previous lecture, that to set up the code to display a record inside the list view, we will going to instantiate the object record. Next to that, we will instantiate the object first, and then place a value kawani at index I dot first, kawani at index I dot ID number, until to the last command, that this line code command or instruction, command instruction, is the command that will place the information into the list view by calling that command list view employee.items.add, and then passing that object record. Let us go back to the form design. The button show all employees, if we look at the code of this mouse click button show all employees, it will run this for loop statement. It will display a message box per employee, per kawani. And take note, the method show is a method that belongs to the class employee, and the code of that is the one that we already seen a while ago, and right now I show back again the definition of that method show. And then this message box will display the current information of that employee. Let us go back to the button show all employees click event, and that's it. Let us go back to the form design. Finally, the last button is the exit button, and we know already that the command application.exit will close the Windows application. Let us compile, run, and test. So I click the build clean solution, and then click build rebuild solution, rebuild all, 1 succeeded, 0 failed, 0 skip. So let us run. I click the debug, start without debugging, or press the keyboard shortcut Ctrl F5. Here we have now the form 1, and it is a employee data entry. Let us input an example employee. For example, ID number 1, and then the name of that employee, 1 a masipag, age, for example, 21, profession, software developer, course, BS IT, address, La Trinidad, Benguet, telephone number, and then to add this employee of 1 masipag and place it to the list view, we click the add button, and here it is. The 4 color of that list view is not readable. Let us go back and then modify the four color of this. I right click it and then select properties. I forgot to change the four color of that list view. Let us set it to yellow so that we can see. Okay, let us save first. Control S, save, and let us run. I press Control F5 to run. Let us input once again. ID number is 1. ID number is 1. Name, first name, 1 Masipag. Age, 21. Profession, software developer. Course, BSIT. Address, example address. And example telephone number. And let us click the add button so that it will add and store it in our array of objects named Kawani at index 0, and at the same time it will place it and display on the list view. As we can see right now, we can read the information upon Masipag. If I click the show all employees, it will display the current employee, 1 Masipag, ID number 1 Masipag, and then I click the OK to close the message box. Let us add another employee. So that we can easily add, we need to clear the contents of our graphical user interface except the list view. I click this clear GUI, and we are ready now to type the next employee, Naruto Uzumaki. Age, profession, student, course, BSIT, address, and example telephone number. Let us click the add button. As we can see now, we have now two records that shown in our list view, the record of 1 Masipag and the record of Naruto Uzumaki. If I click the show all employees, the first record displayed is 1 Masipag. If I click OK, another message box appear, this time the record of Naruto Uzumaki. If I click OK, only 2 employees added so far. Now, if I click add, and it will exceed the size of the array of up to 5, it will display this message box that up to 5 employees are accepted. Therefore, it can no longer add another employee because our size of our array of objects, or our array of employees, is up to 5. If I click the clear list, it will clear the contents of the list view, and it will reset the index to -1, and therefore if we click the show all employees, the records will not display again because we reset the index to -1. The record of 1 Masipag and Naruto Uzumaki are not anymore displayed because they are cleared. If I click the clear GUI, therefore it will clear the text boxes, mass text box, combo box. And then finally, I click the exit button to close and then click yes. I posted your fourth assignment in our Google Classroom. Please answer and accomplish it.
That ends our topic for today. I hope you are inspired in my class. Thank you for watching. God bless us.